contradicting claims on areas much contested between Washington and Tehran, a day after a wrap-up of talks in Switzerland on the fine print of the memorandum of understanding reached last week. The US president claiming that Tehran has in fact agreed to a return of nuclear inspectors in the country. A clear echo of what his Vice President J.D. Vance announced just yesterday. But Iran's foreign ministry insisting it has not changed its commitments on nuclear inspections. Iran's president is stressing that the effectiveness of negotiations depend on Washington's commitment and then implementation of its obligations. Masoud Pezeshkian, currently in Islamabad, where the interim deal signed last week is likely on minds and agenda of talks with Pakistani leaders. The Strait of Hormuz remains another issue that could rupture this deal, Iran expressing no intention of ceding control over the vital waterway. Its ambassador to the UN has stressed that the strait is open without any charges for 60 days. Although what will happen after that depends on negotiations. Meanwhile, fresh fighting in southern Lebanon threatening the latest ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The Iran-backed group, or rather the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. Hezbollah, that's Iran-backed group, accusing Israel of violating a truce agreed last week, while Israel claims the IDF was targeting a militant cell. Lebanese officials say 2 people were killed in the first reported fatalities since the ceasefire took effect on Sunday. Iran not straying from its position either, that a full truce in Lebanon remains a core part of any deal. Kate Fisher has been tracking developments for CNA. She joins us from Washington, D.C. Kate, some things don't change, the same sticking points, the same red lines. The hope is that Washington might find a new way to address these obstacles.
Yeah, well, as you say, continuing here that we have competing narratives from the US and Iran on key issues between the two of them. Firstly, this issue of nuclear inspectors from the United Nations being allowed back into Iran. The US, J.D. Vance, the vice president, making it clear that that was a milestone agreement during his talks in Switzerland with the Iranians yesterday. But the Iranians saying that no such commitments were made. And then you have Donald Trump, the president, just in the last few minutes taking to Truth Social to say that Iran has fully and completely agreed to highest level nuclear inspections and then to infinity, he says, and that this will ensure what he describes as nuclear honesty. And if they did not agree to this, there would be no further negotiations. So clearly 2 completely different opinions on what is being done on that nuclear inspection issue. Also difference of opinions when it comes to what happens to that money that is unfrozen, the Iranian assets that had been kept frozen in bank accounts in Qatar. Donald Trump saying that that money will be spent to buy US agricultural products to feed the Iranian people. The Iranians saying that they will decide what to do with that money when it is unfrozen and it will not necessarily be spent on anything from the United States. Also, the Strait of Hormuz, that huge sticking point that we understand has at least partially reopened, that certainly shipping traffic has increased over the past few days. But we also know that Iran and Oman are meeting to discuss potentially imposing fees for traffic on that vital waterway, something that the US has always said is unacceptable. So the US is doing, it says, what it's trying to achieve from this, and it's saying that it's going its way, whereas the Iranians are saying, no, we're doing what we want, despite the fact that this memorandum of understanding has been signed. And in theory, it's just the nitty-gritty details that are going to be decided over the next 60 days.
The US making sure that its voice is heard on this MOU, a big part will be securing support from its partners in the Gulf. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, also the National Security Advisor, making his way there. What will he be looking to achieve in this 3-state visit?
Yeah, he should be arriving around about now. And he has a delicate balancing act ahead of him because many of these countries where he will be speaking to the leaders, they are American allies. They have assisted the US in some way during this conflict. And of course, they have been bombed in return for their assistance. And now they're concerned about what they see as major concessions to Iran, a power that they have been very wary of and do not want to see empowered in their region. So Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is going to have to try to assuage their fears while at the same time defending the deal signed by his president. Of course, he doesn't want to suggest to Donald Trump that this is a deal that would empower Tehran over these other countries. So he's going to have to assuage them over things like the ballistic missile program, this $300 billion reconstruction fund that is supposedly going to be created, and of course, who controls the shipment of oil through this region. So this will be a big balancing act for Marco Rubio. And of course, it's kind of a way of Donald Trump looking at how his Secretary of State deals with these things and his Vice President, who he's entrusted with the negotiations, knowing that both these men potentially have their eye on being his successor in the White House.
Oh, thanks. Kate Fisher there reporting for CNA from Washington, D.C. And Hira Mustafa joins us now. Hira, earlier we were reporting on Iran's president making his first trip overseas to Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan, a primary broker for this deal between Iran and the United States. And Hira Mustafa joins us live from Islamabad. Hira, the Iranian foreign minister also accompanying President Masoud Pezeshkian on this visit to Pakistan. What do they need to achieve?
Well, absolutely. The timing of this visit is highly significant because this is coming right after the Lucerne summit that was held over the weekend. And experts who we have been speaking to in the capital are telling us that this is not at all an incidental trip because Pakistan is a key mediator between the warring parties and has been shuttling messages between the Iranian leadership as well as the Americans ever since the war on Iran started. So in that context, it's a highly consequential visit of the Iranian president to Pakistan, and while he arrived here in Islamabad, he was warmly welcomed by the Pakistani leadership. He will be having one-on-one talk with the Pakistani civilian leadership that includes Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, as well as Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari. And according to the experts, the talks are going to be focused on the technical level talks that are going to take place or continue in the coming days with regards to Iran's nuclear program. Apart from this, both the leadership of both the countries are going to have discussions on strengthening the bilateral cooperation between the two countries in economy, trade and regional connectivity. Officials here in Islamabad are also hoping that after the lifting of some sanctions from Iran during the talks in Switzerland, this could pave a way to restart the progress in Pakistan-Iran gas pipeline project and other energy projects that have been stalled over the years because there were sanctions on Iran. So those projects could be restarted, and also the experts here in the capital are also telling us that it's likely that the Iranian delegation is going to meet Pakistan's top military leadership. That includes the Chief of Defense Forces, Asim Munir, who played a pivotal role in bridging the divide between the warring parties and has made multiple trips to Iran before reaching the Islamabad memorandum of understanding between the two countries.
Thanks, Hira Mustafa, looking at his visit that is trying to pull these two sides, the US and Iran, and make them stay together and achieve a more long-standing peace between the two sides. Hira Mustafa covering the story for CNN live from Islamabad.